afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We are ready to kick this show off right now. Yeah, Justice Haynes just coming back from Ann Arbor, and some of the numbers that were put out there. You might not be aware of all of them, but he has had 4 straight 100-yard rushing games to start his Michigan career. That's never been done. So he's got that going for himself. He's number 3 in individual rushing in the country. He's number 2 if you go with the Power 5 programs. He's had 4 50-yard rushes or more this season. And, of course, he's got 2 75-yard runs on the road this year. Adds up. He has been incredible for U of M, and that was the case this past Saturday. Welcome in as we are ready to get things underway. Lots to talk about. I do want to start this show with a correction. I was on the postgame show on Saturday after Michigan's win over Nebraska, and somebody on the feedback was saying that Michigan had screwed up right at the half by not calling a timeout. And I was a little bit dismissive of that person and someone else about that cat and mouse game, and that, Michigan had, it was okay the way that they went about it. And looking back on that, I blew it. Whatever the reason was, you got down to 13 seconds and Nebraska was on their own 48. If Michigan calls a timeout there, they're going to have to punt. I don't know. At the time, I was thinking maybe that, you throw a 4th and 16, but, if they don't make it, then Michigan's going to have the ball at the, 48, which is already a 65-yard field goal. And if, maybe only 5 seconds, who knows how many seconds we're able to come off the clock, but there's 13. But, if there's only 5 and you have 8 seconds, that, I say plenty of time. It's time enough to, get 5 or 6 yards. You can make the case that Zavada could kick a 65-yarder anyway. So, yeah, Michigan did not have that right. Sharon Moore had no comment on the situation today, and then was asked if Michigan actually has a time guru, a time management guru that is in his ear during games. And he said, yes, they do have a time management guru. So those are some of the things right off of the jump here that we get to. Now, plenty of other stuff out there, including this bye week now that the Michigan comes at a good time. You always say that. I feel like it does come at a good time after a few games at the quarter pole. Nice time for a bye week. We'll get into the list of things that Michigan wants to do during the bye week. We might all agree on all of those things. Also, with it being a month in and 4 games, that quarter poll, taking a look at the teams that have been surprising, things that have jumped out in all of college football 1 month in. We'll ask, for your feedback on that. But we still go back now that we've had 2 nights to sleep on it and go back and review the tape. Michigan at Nebraska, and what happened there and what went right and wrong and everything else. And, Michigan could have won this game by a lot more if they didn't have the Hail Mary, if they didn't have the taunting penalty. Then, you're looking at Michigan winning this game by double digits. That didn't happen, and they held on. Could have been too close for you. In the end, they get a road victory, and they do it by running the ball. This looked like Michigan's identity. This looked like the pound and ground, the smash identity that Michigan had in 2021, 2022, and the national championship season. Those 3 years, this looked like vintage Michigan smash. And for that, those 3 years were very successful. And so to see it jump up and, having Haynes' fabulous. Jordan Marshall had the one drive where both runs were pretty nice. You get a 1-2 punch there. That was also something that was reminiscent of 21, 22, and 23. So that's the first thing that jumps out to me, the running game and the running backs. And then you don't go too far without talking about the offensive line, and they've had different pieces. We know El Hadi was out, and then they did have Brady Norton, who started over at right guard, and so both of those guys were out, and so you had a new left guard, and then a new right guard. Those guys, and then the center play. People can continue to praise Crippen. And so a lot of, attaboys going around for the offensive line, and they deserve it. When they don't play well, we're all over them. So when they go out and have a performance like this, they were under the microscope and they stepped up. It does show you how quickly things can change a week, or I don't know, maybe, more than that, because after the Oklahoma game, plenty of people, and you understood it, saying that, Grant Newsome is under fire. He needs this offensive line blows. And this is the hallmark and the backbone of Michigan football. He's not getting it done. Well, that's how things could change. And people now, I would say, are saying the same thing. And it's understandable about Ron Bellamy. I did notice that as I was driving back from Ann Arbor today, I looked over and I saw the jugs machines, and they were running. And I'm thinking, I bet they're going to have I'm just joking. They didn't have that, but they're probably going to, and Sharon said that's one of the things that they will be, and good to hear, that they will be working on consistency in catching the ball. Those are the things that he is going to harp on when it comes down to those receivers. And, that is, it's something where if you said, I'm worried that the Michigan wide receivers have slippery fingers, that they just don't catch the ball. That's understandable because they have not. And for Shannon Goodwin, who's a freshman who dropped that touchdown, has dropped some other, and he's dropped some passes this year. He's a young guy, and you're thinking that he's got room to grow and get better. You don't have, I think people think, well, you just have stone hands, and so move them the corner, or you can never get better. You can get better, whether it's concentration or just working at it. You can get better. But that's where you bring in Samaj Morgan, who, drops passes this year he has, and it's been an adventure with him back on punt return. But, Samaj is at a point where he's dangerous, and he can score you a touchdown and, take it the distance, but he can also drop a pass. He can also fumble a punt, muff a punt. And it's something that you just have to deal with if you're a fan, knowing that, with the good, will come the bad. Should they be benching him? Those are at least things that you can think about. Giving some other guys some opportunities. All right. And you say all of that when Michigan had their superb drive, their drive of the year in the fourth quarter, that 16-play, 77-yard drive. And they had only got one. There was no more than 2 third down conversions up to that point. And Morgan, they throw short of the sticks on 3rd and 3, and he has to make a move. And it was a real nice individual effort. He caught the ball, and then he made the effort to get the first down. Michigan also picked up another third down conversion when they threw a screen pass to Justice Haynes on a 3rd and 9. Wow. And that converted. And you may have shouted when you initially saw the pass, a screen pass on a 3rd and 9. But when it works, you're like, oh, okay. It's kind of like when someone shoots a shot and you think, no, don't shoot that. And it goes in. You're like, all right, let's go. Never do it again or whatever. But there it is. A lot of praise for Chip Lindsey today by Sharon Moore, who was back after his 8-day leave of absence, of suspension, call it whatever you want. Michigan since 2023 is 8-0 in suspension games. Old hat. They're used to it. And not as big of a deal when you don't lose any of those games. If Biff would have lost on Saturday, completely different story. If Sharon Moore, when he coached those 3 games in the national championships, a different story. If Michigan loses one of those. But they haven't, and they didn't. And so, those suspensions of those games, it worked out just fine for U of M. And now they just have that one more to go next year. I'm hoping that just gets snuffed out, but at least as we sit here right now, the first game of next year, and then it'll be done. So the running backs, the offensive line, the wide receivers. I haven't talked about Underwood, and Underwood, as I watch him, he just seems to get better and better and better. I mean, he played a better road game than he did at Oklahoma. He could have done more. Of course, if they're catching some passes, maybe he can make a more catchable pass as well. And he ran that touchdown run in the first half, that 37-yarder. You're just watching that, and you're thinking, man, this guy is, he can throw, he can run, he is just the real deal. I don't think that I will pick. I have to, see how it all plays out and everything. I don't think I'm going to pick against Michigan again while Underwood's the quarterback. And I know that I had gone into the season having him with 3 losses in the first 3 road games, but I came to that fork of the road and I took it on Friday and last week after, watching Underwood. I said, I want to be in front on Underwood, and I'm not picking against him again. And so I picked Michigan over Nebraska, and I felt good about that because I want to try to get it right. And then I did get it right, and it feels good. Even though, picks are picks, you got to take the criticism when you lose one, and it hurts. But when you win, sometimes it feels good to pat yourself on the back. And so if you had Michigan winning the game this past Saturday, give yourself a pat on the back. Let's take some of the feedback on what folks thought on Michigan and Nebraska this past Saturday. And we start with Mark, who's talking about the offensive line. Maybe they're good. Fewer sacks. Pre-2025, Auburn's O-line regarded as a top unit nationally, ranking 7th and 8th by expert evaluators. Experience, high pro football focus grades, and key transfers. Yeah, that is something too. And you said maybe. Maybe Oklahoma is that good. And, by the way, speaking of picking, I had put a little money on one game on Saturday, and it was Oklahoma minus 6.5. And I was, keeping an eye. I think Auburn got out ahead, and then I saw that they were up by 5, right? Was that what it was? And I thought, well, this looks like a loser. And then I saw that they ended up winning the game by 7. I got a sack to get that cover, which was really nice. I mean, that's gambling. That usually works against you. And so when it does work for you, sometimes you get one of those miracle wins. You end up feeling pretty good. I'd actually the week before got another miracle win. Look, I'm just giving you a quick rundown on some of my handicapping. I had started the season out, 0 for 5, 0 for 6. And I'm just like, just put a fork in me. I'm not going to be able to come back from this. Well, I'm streaky, and I kept coming back. And then last week, I adjusted the Georgia-Tennessee line to Georgia just minus 2.5, and they won by 3. So 2 weeks in a row, I'm thinking, oh, man, now I got it. I even went with Michigan State plus 19.5 points. Put a notch up there as well. I've turned things around. I'm on the positive side now after an 0 for 5 start. which is makes me feel good. To be honest with you, John is talking about an over and under on the number of 50-yard plus runs for Haynes for the rest of the season. He's setting it at 4.5. Well, they've played 4 games and he's got 4. And so they got 8 games. Competition will be more difficult. And you're putting it at 4.5. 50-yard runs are hard to come by. I remember, Corum and the one-armed bandit would do it a lot. And I think in the 23 season, maybe even in the 22 season, you'd look at the stats and Michigan was way up there in 50-yard plus plays or 50-yard plus runs. Maybe they didn't distinguish between receiver and running back, but it really is to get 50, the 275 yarders. What's it say? It says that you got speed. Tyrone Wheatley used to do it in the early 90s for Michigan. Of course, in that Rose Bowl, he had a couple really long ones. When Donovan Edwards was against Ohio State, you just get him in the clear, just give him a little bit of daylight, and, boom, they're gone. And Haynes, there's football speed. When he came in, I didn't see people saying, oh, this guy's just lightning. You just give him the ball and, he's a sub 4.4 guy. I didn't see any of that. Maybe there were reports of that. I mean, I don't look as close as, everything. But if somebody said that he had sub 4.4 speed, I would believe them. If they sometimes they put those next gen trackers on the guys to get the miles per hour that they're running. I know they did that with Blake Corum, who was faster than his 40 times. I wouldn't be surprised if, he's pretty jacked up talking about Haynes. If he didn't have the sub 4.4 with pads on, I don't think you can be, I guess you can be faster, but it doesn't seem like it. I like today, Sharon Moore was telling a story about Haynes, and he said that Haynes, in practice, they would be down on their own 15-yard line, and they'd just be, running some plays. And Haynes would be taking it the distance. So he would run 85 yards. And he said that he came up to Justin and said, look, we're going right back at it, whatever the drill was or anything else. So you don't have to take it the distance. And Haynes said, yes, I do. And it reminded me of, I don't know if it was one of those football, I forget what they call those on the NFL Network, whatever. It was a Jerry Rice. You always see Jerry Rice, the greatest player in football history, running up the hill that that he had famous. But it might have been an interview with Montana, who said that he was saying whenever he would throw a ball to Jerry, that it didn't matter where they were at on the field, he always took it the distance. And Montana told Jerry that, look, he wanted to get more throws in or whatever. So you're really going to wear yourself out. And Jerry told him, no, I'm always taking it the distance. I always want to score. That sounded a lot like what Justice Haynes and Sharon Moore had to say about him. I don't know, one of those things where you're out there and you're on the field and you're thinking, whatever it is in your mind, these super athletes that you always want to score. And so the rest of us, we think, okay, yeah, you're just running through daylight and, you run 10 yards and then you come back to whatever, conserve your energy or get ready for the next run. But no, Haynes goes the distance. And it was like Jerry Rice. Thanks for bringing that up, John. Here's another John. And John has plenty of criticisms, which he shares on the air, but we also won a tough road game. So congrats to the staff and the team. Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a game where you said, oh, perfect or great, or they look like they're going to, go to the college football playoff for sure. They look like a national championship contender. Yeah, I mean they could have won this game by a lot more. And the wide receivers, you could talk corners. Those would be the top two things that, and you talk about the taunting penalty. I mean, those are things that the team deserves to be criticized on, but also it's does it feel better? It's a lot better to go back and talk about cleaning things up and they need to do this and criticizing that than if it was a loss. A loss, everything is falling apart and all of that. You win and you go back, hey, that's it. And I'm right with you here on this one, John. I think Luke Fickell it has not worked for him in Wisconsin, and Michigan, I think, will take them out to the woodshed. John is hoping Zavada gets a chance at a 65-yarder. Well, if Biff was, listening to his clock management guy, which he should have been, I don't know what happened there, then you would have had your chance maybe if they would have gone for it on the fourth down. The season is at the 4. That is at the quarter pole. So that's the quarter pole that they're at, right? Not the third pole. 4 times 3 is 12. So yeah, there you are. That's it. Yeah, it was nice. Zavada got his swag back, and they needed that. John is talking that the taunting penalty is mostly BS. Yeah, I don't know. If you read about taunting, it's not like it's been just this year that they're starting it. It's been around for a while. If you stand over a player, it's taunting. If you direct any kind of histrionics at the opponent's bench, it's taunting. To me, that fell right into line where it would be taunting. Now, if your argument is that you've seen other players and other teams and they seem like they're doing those sort of things and they don't get called, okay. I mean, that could be something. I don't know. That doesn't mean that you should do it because even though it's a rule, other guys are getting away with it. I don't know. So the one part about the officials is that there's a lot of people during the game, you're watching and you're thinking, why isn't the other team getting called for holding against Michigan? And Sharon Moore said, yeah, he's seen his guys getting tackled out there. Sharon, though, did in a moment of truth, or maybe Michigan fans didn't like it, said also that Michigan had been getting away with some of that too. So maybe if they're relaxing the rules more, maybe you do take advantage of that and try to push the envelope. There's no pushing the envelope when it comes to taunting. You can, just because you see other games and guys are, flapping their wings at players or something, and they're not getting called. Each official or each crew is going to have different tolerance for things. So you don't want to play with it that way when it comes down to it. Mr. Martini is saying that these wide receivers aren't going to cut it. Well, if you told me that they're missing a true wide receiver one, and if they really had a wide receiver one, well, then, you'd have McCauley as a wide receiver two. He'd be a real nice wide receiver two, a nice possession wide receiver two with his height. And then you have somebody like Samaj as a wide receiver three, who's just going to get, a couple balls here and there. Would be really nice. But, what team is it sitting around at one of their position groups and saying, if we just had a great running back, then our guys could just fall in. If we had just a great left tackle, then that would really anchor our offensive line. If we just had a defensive tackle, that goes down the line with saying that. It's one of the things over the 3, and you'd even extend it to last year because they wanted to just run the ball, and they didn't have a quarterback last year. And so they were not going to get the first cut wide receivers when the negative recruiting was, you're just going to Michigan to block. So if you want to catch any balls, don't go there. It's going to take a minute. Now they've got the quarterback after this year. I think everybody would expect Michigan's got the money. They got the quarterback that, they would be able to get the top transfer portal wide receiver, might still be able to grab a prized wideout, Russell, and flip one or, in this class. But yeah, I don't know about not cutting it. I mean, after the Oklahoma game, Grant Newsome couldn't cut it, and the offensive line was a bunch of jokers. And so now, here we are for 4 games, and the wide receivers are a bunch of butterfinger, slippery hands, can't catch a cold type things. Put them out. Have them catching on the jugs machine for the next 2 weeks. Rain or shine, have them out there. Yeah, I get it. I don't have it. They need to be better. I would say that if Michigan wants to be a dangerous college football playoff team, make the playoffs, be a dangerous team, they need way better play out of the wideouts. That's just where we're at. I'm at. I think maybe you guys as well, right? Come on. Brian says, take off the speed governor on the jugs machine. Just let that thing spin. Boom, throw those footballs in there. Guys are going to come back all beat up. Kendrick Bell has earned more play after the onside kick recovery. How about some other guys? If Morgan and Goodwin are going to drop the ball in real games, yeah, Bell, let's see more of Marsh. Where's Browder? And you pick some of these guys up like Charleston, Simpson, supposed to be shifty. Give some other guys an opportunity over these next 2 weeks. How about, do they have 3 freshmen? Jacob Washington too? Put them out there. I mean, they could drop balls just like anybody else. Yep, we're there. It's a good point about the tight ends too. Hansen, see if they could get him back. A Klein-Hansen combo. But you don't need 10 wide receivers. You really only need 1 or 2. So if McCulley and he could get one other, and then a little Hansen-Klein combination, now you're talking. Detroit straight up is not worried about the wide receivers because they have not worked Marsh into the offense. I'll give you another reason, maybe not to worry about him, is that you have a quarterback in Underwood. Well, I don't know if he's just scratching the surface, but he is getting better. And a excellent quarterback is going to raise up the play of these wide receivers. And it's not just McCulley, Morgan, and Goodwin. There's 7. You got Peyton O'Leary, Charleston, Simpson, Fred Moore. What's ever happened to him? He's dropped the ball. Bell, Amarian Stewart, Marsh, Washington, Browder. I mean, that's a lot of guys. Are they all dropping the ball? What's up with that? No, Browder was, dropping the ball in the spring game, so that's it. Kind of wish they had Kendrick Bell or Donovan McCulley throwing the ball on the wide receiver pass trick play. Well, Kendrick Bell, a quarterback in St. Louis, right? And Donovan McCulley, also a quarterback and somebody who threw at Indiana. Sharon today said that Samaj Morgan threw that pass. I don't know if he said perfectly. Said he didn't miss any practice, fall camp, summer, spring, never missed until Saturday. He said going back to when Morgan was a freshman, it was always Morgan and Donovan Edwards. And he said, oh, Donovan never missed. And that's why they went with Donovan. So I don't know. They apparently pretty good, but never missed until Saturday. That's it. All right, let's see here. TJ says the replay of Crippen blocking is masterclass, often getting in multiple blocks on a play. He's not getting enough love. Yeah, the one where he worked over to the left and then he got up to the next level and blocked again. It could have been on the one of the long touchdown runs, whether it was from Haynes or it was Marshall. I think it was from Haynes. What you're talking about there. Yeah, Crippen, if you could see that from Crippen. He's getting a lot of praises from a lot of places. He got a good Pro Football Focus numbers. You know who else got a really good Pro Football Focus grade was the freshman Jaden Sanders. Now, you don't see every play, so you don't see where the ball is going, and yet you could see that Sanders could tackle 2 times out in the open. He came up, but he got an excellent grade PFF wise. USC is going to be a really tough game. Michigan plays awful on the West Coast, and SC looks legit this year. Yeah. I think it's going to be a tough one too. There you go. A little Hail Mary talk. Hail Mary. And the 3rd and 22 penalty, 10 points. The counter to USC saying if State can score on USC, I have no doubt we can. Yeah. That's the part. It's going to stress your pass defense, but what can help out your pass defense more than anything? A good pass rush. What does Michigan have? They have one. They now have, speaking of just like the running game, looking vintage 21, 22, 23, they also have bookend edges now with Barham, or it's just unlocked, where I think they just say, Jay Sean, see quarterback, get quarterback, and he just goes like a bat out of hell, goes after him. And then you get Derek Moore, who's great on the other side. It does give you, Hutchinson, a Jabo type vibes, where you just go each and every year on the different guys at the defensive ends. Oh yeah, these guys. Yeah, no doubt. They got that going. And that can help. How about this bye week? That's what we're talking about here. Really helping refine the offense, see more downfield passing against Wisconsin. It's one thing, it seems like they can do anything they want against Wisconsin. Rico says maybe we can get a wide receiver from Syracuse. They were great versus Clemson. Maybe they can get a wide receiver that's committed to Syracuse. Maybe that's what you're talking about there. Sam putting it in a nice, this is what I've noticed from Sam. He puts everything in a nice, real neat sentence. Good afternoon without the Hail Mary. We dominated. It would have been one where you didn't have to come down to an outside kick at the end. Rico saying it was coaching malpractice. Well, you know, Sharon Moore today said that they have a clock guru, a clock management guru, a game management guru that is in the head coach's ear. So with 13 seconds to go, why wasn't that guy telling Biff, call a timeout? Biff, stop thinking about the, coffee ice cream and the cigar and call a timeout. I was going to say a lot of different things there, but they didn't get that executed from whoever is supposed to be. Yeah, it's easy, and ultimately it does. Whoever the head coach is at the time, it goes back to them. He has to make the call, but Biff is supposed to have someone in his ear telling him, timeout, 13 seconds. They're not going to throw a rollout 4th and 16 Hail Mary from their own 48. They get sacked. They might as well just, put 3 points up on the board for Michigan. They, if they're incomplete, I don't know how much time you can burn on a Hail Mary, 5, maybe 8 seconds, where then your turn. But if it's no good, what is a Hail Mary? Does it have less than a 5% chance? So you're just going to give Michigan the ball for a 65-yard field goal. And again, if it's a little less time, maybe Michigan has a chance to gain 5 yards. Yeah, it was the wrong call. Fire Biff. No more head coaching for Biff. Does Biff get to coach because of that? Does he not get to coach the game in Germany next year? Let's see. Are any of these guys Martindale? I was going to say these guys German, but I don't know. Chip Lindsey, is that doesn't matter. Whoa. Haynes looks like Reggie Bush. Jordan Marshall reminds me of Khalil Mullings. I see that. Haynes, I was saying more of Tyrone Wheatley, but Reggie Bush. Bo, the offensive line is gelatinous and only going to gel more. Crip to the crib. Jake Garnera adds athletic traits. Once El Hadi's back, we wrecking. Gelatinous. Yeah, you get, I like the word. What's up? You're Abby? You're in. Haynes is good. A lot of, catch the ball, taunting. Sharon said the taunting part, he talked to him, loves the emotion and everything else. You get a chance. When you have something like that go wrong, get good coaching. This is just me talking now. This is not what Sharon said. You get opportunity to, coaching moments, teaching points. That's what I'm looking for. The game before, I saw Jair Hill doing as Scar even mentioned it when he was doing the film, that go celebrate with your teammates. It was close enough to an opponent being on the ground. You could have said, maybe you could have interpreted that if you're a ref, that maybe that was taunting. Maybe after that game, that Michigan should have been in there saying, look, go celebrate with your teammates. Don't direct anything at any opponent or the sideline. We watch enough football. I always see there's a lot going on in the stands. Guys looking at the stands. They love telling the crowd to be quiet and all of that. Sharon pointed out that a lot of his guys are looking up at their parents, and pointing to them, which is okay. But they can't do any like throat slashes or I don't know whatever this is. I don't really know what that's called. I call it smelling your finger, but I don't think that's what they call it. Woo! What is that called? Somebody will know. That sounds stupid, calling it what I did, but that's it. John is hoping they don't take the Wisconsin game lightly. Yeah, I'm hoping they don't do that either. There's TBP JMR McCulley is the only wideout who doesn't have hands of stone. What can you do? I don't really know what this means. So I'm going to skip over it. I think it was like cycling or something. Old Hadley joins the fray and makes a point that the Michigan defense might be the best USC will face so far. Yeah. I'm not sitting here today because Michigan has no chance in California. They've got no chance against USC. Yeah, their quarterback looks pretty good. He can throw it around, but get to the quarterback. It looks a lot different when you get somebody like Jayshon Barham. And if you can run and throw like Michigan can, you might be all right. Thank you. Yeah, give me a thumbs up there when it comes down to it. So, yeah, during the bye week, put them out there like, they do. I've never been in the military, but, you always see them when, they first go out there at some point, they're clearing the barracks and, having them, stand out in the rain and march. Get those wide receivers out next to those jugs guns for 2 straight weeks. And that's it. Catch. And if they drop one, run the stairs. I don't know if they're going to do that. But they said preaching consistency. Let's read exactly what Sharon Moore had to say about catching the ball and what they're going to work on Michigan during the bye week. It was one of the first questions that he was asked today. So let's see. If he was on Barham, lengthy. Not sure why I can't find it. Let's try it again. Opening statement. Rod Moore, the blown coverages with the defensive backs, credited Nebraska a little bit on that. Diagnosing the drop passes issue. Here it is. He thinks it's consistency, being a hands catcher. We're really harping on that. It's a piece. It's an emphasis this week on not allowing the ball to connect to your body. I think in coaching a lot, you hear it all the time. Catch the ball, catch the ball. What does catch the ball mean? You've got to teach people how to catch the ball, whether it's seeing the ball to the top or whether it's catching away from your body, whether it's above your navel, catching it thumb to thumb, below, pinky to pinky. There's all of these key coaching points. So really harping on those things to make those plays we need to, because we can and we have. So that's the goal. We've got to continue to do that this week. That's all coach talk. Put them out in the rain, get the jugs guns, and fire repeatedly for 12 hours at these guys. And then down ups till sundown if they drop one. Now that's old school. So Sharon's balancing old school and new school to see how they do it. We'll see. There you go, Mark. They drop one. 10 in a row. That's it on it. Yeah, so the bye week, that would be one thing for sure. Get healthy. It's a nice thing for 2 weeks. You get healthy, but having, it's already been mentioned here, a Klein Hansen combo, and you're not relying on Morgan and Goodwin as much. Getting Zeke Berry back. El Hadi, he was asked today about El Hadi, and it was just, we'll see. It wasn't a great, you're heading into the bye. There wasn't a whole lot of updates when it came to injured players. Rod Moore getting back and playing a few snaps was nice. And Sharon said that Sharon Moore said that Rod Moore was hanging out with Derek Moore. No, I don't know. He said that he felt better. A lot of Moores. They're all good. And so that was positive about Rod Moore, that he came back. You're thinking Rod Moore is someone who could have a positive effect on the defense. I also think because they were down some corners like Zeke Berry, and then they were playing Shamari Earls, they're playing Elijah Dotson. Obviously, they're starting Jaden Sanders, and Sanders got such great marks that he didn't look like he's going to get taken off the field anytime. He's a player. And Earls, everybody Earls looks the part, but he got hurt in the pregame backflip or whatever he was doing. So that's it. So catching passes, getting guys healthier, working those corners, reminding guys to celebrate with their teammates. I think I'm good. I think that's what, work on those, get some of those younger players, get them into the mix during the bye, just rest guys up. See some of those youngsters when it comes down to it. All right, so that's the bye week. The third thing I said I was going to get to is just college football. Now, give me something that stood out to you at the quarter poll. I never did make official predictions when it came down to the national championship game or the Final Four or the 12 teams. I didn't do all that. But if I was, I hate to say this, I think that I was going to pick Clemson. Clemson in Texas. Clemson is 1-3. Clemson had a senior quarterback that was being talked about as Klubnik was the best quarterback in the country. The defense, especially the defensive line, was supposed to have all of this NFL talent. A lot of NFL talent on defense, senior quarterback, Dabo Sweeney. This sounded like it could have been the year for Clemson. They are 1-3. It's shocking. You know what else is shocking is Indiana football. I know they didn't play anyone the first 3 games. They played Illinois at home, but they can really throw the ball. Putting 63 points up on Illinois, that's impressive. Now, Oregon, they haven't played anyone either. But Dante Moore looks great. This looks like Oregon, the guys running free, Dan Lanning, over there just telling everybody, more. They're at Penn State this week. Kind of game you like to see. I use that, just looking the next 2 weeks at Iowa, at Oregon. And they still have to go to Penn State. So I don't think Indiana is running clean. It's not like they were last year when they avoided almost everyone. But yeah, Clemson is the big shocker to me. This isn't a shocker. We all do it. I did it a little bit with Michigan and Central. Is that you lose a game like Oklahoma, and then you come back and you just obliterate a team like Central. Like, woo, Michigan's got it going now. And it's like Texas. Oh, Texas is all right now. He just beat up these teams that have no chance, and everybody's like, oh, they got right. In Michigan's case, actually, that was fair, but that was also a quality win that they came up with. Yeah, Dabo's just got to take it. Dabo's saying you better buy in on the Tigers. I was with them. I was buying in. Sam says Michigan's got a jugs machine at quarterback. Good point. To me, at the quarter mark, there is total improvement on offense. Yeah, they've got a real offense. Got to get better catching the ball, but having the running game and a quarterback, those are nice things. And an offensive line. Yeah. Night and day from last year. All right. What else? I talked about some of the handicapping that I went through. If you're joining us late, I did apologize for the dismissive feedback about Michigan at the end of the half. Michigan did not play that right. I was thinking that they did. I don't know, maybe it's Gary Danielson not making a big deal about it. And I thought, well, if Gary's not making a big deal, why is everybody else? I think that, as was pointed out, and this might be the case, broadcasters, you get to a certain age and, it's tough. I don't know to be ageism or something, but you just call it. Danielson didn't seem like he had a very good broadcast. Where's Barham? Why are we talking about him? He's literally been in there the whole game, Gary. I mean, I don't know. What do you want to say? That's a face mask. I don't know. He's got the video right in front of him. He just had a bad game. Didn't know what to say at the end of the half. But look, he's 75 years old. I mean, how many more years is, Gary going to be up there in the booth? Maybe this should be his last year. Gary, I know somebody who's used to talk with Gary Danielson a lot, and Gary was very critical of other, not over the air, but he would be critical of other commentators. He would say things like, this guy never points out anything. He's just over there pointing out the obvious. He was telling this guy, I try to tell people what's happening. So, that and that's the thing that I want from a color commentator. I want Gary Danielson to say, there's 13 seconds to go. You have to call a timeout if you're Michigan and force them to punt. If not, they're going to throw a Hail Mary. And would you rather have them punt, or are they going to go for it on fourth down, risking giving you a shot at a 65-yard field goal, knowing Zavada's leg, or leaving enough time where you might be able to pick up 10 yards, 13 seconds, no matter how long it takes to run this play if you're deciding to throw it down there? Where was Danielson on any of that? He was talking like, well, teams like to throw it down there kind of as an arm punt or something. But they didn't do that. They ran the ball. So, Danielson had a bad game. I don't know if it's because he's 75 years old, but Brian says it was announced that this was Danielson's last season. Well, all right, then I'll give him a break. Give him a break. I guess the last game he'll do is a Michigan game. Hopefully, we can all just hope. All right. Here's Clemson. Oh, Detroit Tigers. Oh, Clemson Tigers, Detroit Tigers. I don't think the Tigers are going to lose tonight. How about that? Yeah, I know they're off. It has been, I watched the Tigers. And I was sitting there, the last time I was watching with some friends was when they played the Yankees. we were watching a game, and we were all just like, they're just killing the Yankees. The first two games, it was like 11-1, 11-2, whatever. And everybody, postseason plans. Oh, we're going to go to a game. All of this stuff. Look at the offense. And then here we are now. And it feels like it's the exact same thing as last year in reverse, where they had absolutely no shot, 0.2% chance of making it, and then they did, and then they didn't have quite 99.8% chance to get in there, but it was really, 96. I know it would be the biggest collapse in Tigers history if they didn't make it. I'm going to say one thing about the Tigers. I recall in 2006, towards the end of the year, the Tigers had never won the American League Central since they had been in it. And so they were trying to do this, and they couldn't do it. And in fact, the Twins ended up overtaking them and won the Central, and the Tigers were relegated to a wild card. And the entire town was down on them. They folded. They backed in. They had a chance to play the A's, who were very beatable. Instead, they got to go play the Yankees in the Bronx. And then it only became louder after game one. Those were only 5-game series when Derek Jeter went 4 for 4 in the first game. The Tigers were in a 0-1 hole, and, they were starting Nate Robertson for some reason. And, Jim Leland was getting bashed. The whole team, they backed into the playoffs. Well, the rest is history. They came back and won 3 straight games against the Yankees. Then they swept the A's, and it looked like they were going to win the World Series. Now they ended up losing the World Series, but they got to the World Series. And the point of that whole thing is that it didn't look like. They looked like they were backing in, and they looked like they had no chance. Once the postseason got there, and they ended up winning 2 rounds and ended up getting to the World Series. And the bats went silent. Just like the next time they got into the World Series. So get there and then do something. Kind of like the Lions, who play tonight. And last year was set up so perfect. They looked so great. They had the 1 seed. It was just set up to go to the Super Bowl, when the year before they won the 2 games. I tell everybody, sit there at halftime when they're playing San Francisco thinking they're going to the Super Bowl. They're going to the Super Bowl. 2 years ago, they got smashed by the Ravens on the road. They're playing the Ravens tonight. See if they can keep it a little bit closer. That's where I'm at on everything. We will be back on Wednesday. It's hard. It is hard. TV, don't really criticize unless it's really obvious. This was something you have to watch for, not a quarterback thing. It's a nerd analyst thing. That's fair. If the Tigers don't make it, it'll be the worst collapse of all time. I'll take your word for it. I knew it was pretty bad. So they went from the greatest comeback of all time last year down to the biggest collapse. Yeah. Not great. That's it. The Tigers are 1-9 since the allegations came out. I was going to say what allegations, but I guess I did read the story about the employees allowed to, run around and act like it's the 1950s or something. I don't know. I don't really know what was going on in that. I read the story. That's about it. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you over on the Amazing Blue Review. Join up. Go to on3.com. Smash the subscribe button. Amazing Blue Review. You get instant access. We're over there talking about Michigan. All the things that we talked about today, we're talking about over there all day, all night. As things happen, they roll in like, all right, let's comment on everything else. Let's keep it going. Keep talking about Michigan. More amplified this week as you get the bye week. So more things to, like, you're thinking, I just want Michigan. It's a bye week. Why is everybody talking about Penn State and Oregon? I want to talk about Michigan. That's the Maize and Blue Review. So head on over there. on3.com. We'll see you there. And if not, we will see you here coming up on Wednesday. So that's that. Take care, everybody. Bye.